All right, we are in Dubrovnik, Croatia. I'm leaving the apartment right now. There's 57 stairs to get down, which today is going to be tough because we went to Lokrum Island yesterday and we walked 14,000 stairs and about 50 flights. It was up and down. We made a video for the kids and it's posted online. Anyway, Dubrovnik is a super cool place. It's an old town. It was first inhabited around 700 AD. And between the 13th and the 17th century, it was actually called the Republic of Ragusa. It was a free republic. It was a commercial hub on the Adriatic Sea, which is between Croatia and Italy. It shares the sea with Venice, which was also a trading partner. And Dubrovnik managed to keep its freedom from outside influences through diplomatic efforts and commercial efforts for centuries, which is amazing because it survived the Hungarians, the Ottomans, and even Napoleon. So Dubrovnik was destroyed in an earthquake in 1667, which was the equivalent of a 7.0 on the Richter scale. So it leveled this town and the monastery on Lokrum Island as well. So in the 17th and the 18th century, it was rebuilt, and it looks substantially similar since then to what it is today. It's a touristy town. There's tons of tourists here, tons of shopping, and it seems as though it's probably always been a touristy town. Just it's on the Adriatic Sea. It's been a mercantile hub for centuries, so it just kind of makes sense. This is always the way it's been. Anyway, we were talking to a waiter at the pizza place, and he was Serbian. So we got into a discussion. He and I got into a discussion about the difference between the Serbian language and the Croatian language. Serbian language officially uses Cyrillic alphabet, while Croats use the Latin. Other than that, the languages are almost exactly the same. There are some, idiosyncrasies with Serbian that are more Russian in nature. Therefore, it kind of gives you just a little piece of their language being similar to Russian reflects their cultural similarities. Serbs are primarily Orthodox, while Croats are primarily Catholic. As a matter of fact, Croatia is one of the most Catholic nations in Europe. And this caused problems during the war with NATO. NATO wanted to get involved in the war here, and Russia at the time was pushing back because of their support of the Serbs, because they were culturally similar. As far as the breakup with Yugoslavia, that had a lot to do with nationality and religion. In the Soviet Union, especially with Ukraine and Russia, it's a little bit different. They're both Orthodox Christians, but the western half of Ukraine identifies more with Western Europe, having been occupied by Western European empires in the past, whereas Russia more identifies with Eurasian ideologies and that sort of thing. So what you have in Ukraine is you have half of Ukraine on the west side identifies with Europe, and the east side identifies with Russia. And there's more Ukrainians on the west side of Ukraine, and there's more Russians on the east side, mostly. And Fukuyama in 1989 talked about this with his article, The End of History, where he suggested that liberalism, Western liberalism in particular, had defeated fascism and communism and had become a universally accepted ideology for all people and kind of discarded culture. And Samuel Huntington wrote an article in 1991 called Clash of Civilizations. And he actually drew a line in his article between East and West. He drew it between the Baltics and Russia, between Poland and Belarus. Poland is Catholic, Belarus is Orthodox, and then he drew it right down the middle of Ukraine, and then through the Baltics, and that's separated by influence. On the western side of that line, you have the influence of Western Europe, and then on the east side of that line, you have more Eurasian influence. And he said that's where the fault line is going to be. This is the clash of civilizations. And fast forward to now, that's exactly where we are. We have a war going on in Ukraine. The line is basically at the Dnieper, where you have the Eurasian influence on the east and the Western European influence on the west. And Huntington called it, 35 years ago. He suggested that this is where the conflict would be, and culture matters. And you see that right now. And it's significant, and my friend Olga in Russia, we're going to go see her next week in Moscow. She gave me the analogy one time that in connection with the collapse of the Soviet Union, imagine you live in a house and it has 15 rooms. And the doors are open and everyone's going all over the place, back and forth between rooms, no problem. And then one day, whatever room you're in, the door closes and that's your new family. And that's what happened in the Soviet Union. You had Russians in Ukraine, you had Ukrainians in Russia, you had Estonians in Tajikistan, you had Armenians in Azerbaijan and Armenians, you had Belarusians in Tajikistan. They're all mixed up, but there's Russians everywhere, primarily. And in Ukraine, that's what you have. You have a ton of Russians on the east side, you have Ukrainians on the west side. They're a little different, and like Huntington said, culture matters. And you can learn that from a waiter in Croatia who's from Serbia, and he'll tell you all about it. So that's the lesson for today. Culture matters. And I'm not going to do much culture today. We're going to sit down and relax. We were at that island. That's Lokrum. Those are the hills. I'm a little sore. My wife's a little sore. Yeah, so we're going to spend this Sunday tooling around the inside the walls here and just enjoying one more day in Croatia before we go to Moscow on Thursday. So you guys hold down the fort for us in the United States, and we'll talk to you from Moscow next weekend.